If you really understood what was happening, then you would make sure that you and your family and your loved ones were protected. And it's not just gold and silver. What we're talking about here is in the financial system. So this is the foundation. This is real money. But you also need food, water, energy, security, as well as that barter ability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. We need to share this information because ignorance does not make you immune. It just leaves you vulnerable. And I don't want anybody here to be vulnerable. And do you think that what stays here or what happens here stays here? No, no, no. It will transition globally. Now we're watching what's happening with England. And England did this massive U-turn, right? So they undid all of the laws, the new budgets, everything, almost everything they've had to undo because the markets were falling apart and the government debt market was falling apart. We're also hearing about the lack of liquidity in the U.S. Treasury market, which is the global foundation of the markets. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. The Fed's relentless interest rate raising campaign and resulting worldwide surge in the dollar is tightening global financial conditions at an alarming pace. And every time they come out and they talk about it, they tell you they are not going to stop. They're not going to stop until something is very broken. Now, your attention is over here, your attention is over there. And what's really happening is this impossible, or probably impossible, because I can't guarantee one way or the other. It's way beyond my control. But they don't want you to understand this because they don't want you to protect yourself. I want you to understand it so you can make educated choices that put your best interest first. All markets, even the deepest and most liquid, can be challenged by a loss of confidence. This is a con game. And all con games require confidence. And they've done a really great job. But it's coming to an end, and they know it. And they're rushing. If they don't already have the CBDs set up, they can talk like they don't. But I don't know that I really believe that either. I've been doing this work for so much of my life that you listen to what they say and then you watch what they do, and when their words are not congruent with their actions, they're lying. When they are, they're telling the truth. And the other thing is the whole world is dealing with a lot of inflation. And interestingly enough, commodity derivatives, right? It's just a contract. It's just a big leverage bet. And commodity prices have actually been, I think, instrumental in pushing inflationary prices up. We saw oil go to minus $37 a barrel? I'm going to pay you to take my oil? Well, how in the world could that ever really happen? Derivative contracts, that's how. So whether it's going up and then it pushed oil up to $120 a barrel? I mean, these things are based on Wall Street products, not on a real supply and demand market. But that real supply and demand market, this is where you and I live our lives. We have to go and buy that gallon of gas or that gallon of milk. We have to do that. But traders, they don't really give a crap. And so I'll put my neck out on the line here because I think that this is true. That derivative trading in all of the areas that matter the most to us, I think that derivatives are driving inflation up. So what the Fed is doing, is that really going to change anything by raising interest rates? What they're doing is killing demand, even though they openly admit that that doesn't tackle a lot of the inflation. Now, it could have some impact on these contracts because most of the time the money is borrowed to do that. And that creates another problem, doesn't it? I think the central banks are out of control. I think the governments are out of control. I think this whole system is out of control. And it has to be cleaned out. It has to be. Your deposit is the bank's asset, and deposits are still, even though they changed a lot of those post laws that were put in place, Dodd-Frank laws that were put in place after 2008, they've reversed almost all of them, but not the bail-in laws, which give the bank the right to bail in your funds in a failing bank. But don't worry, because they're going to give you shares of stock. They have no market value because who wants shares of stock in a failing institution? But hey, if that's what you want, then that's where you hold your wealth. And that's what you'll get. But they have hidden leverage that we're not being told about. We don't understand this. And it's so darn complicated and complex anyway. Your eyes glaze over and you go, forget it. They must know what they're doing. No, they don't know what they're doing. And that's the problem. It's the blind leading the blind. And the deadline is looming. Could they postpone it? Well, they've done it before, except now they've made it mandatory for all contracts to be written against the SOFR, no longer the LIBOR, so it'd be kind of hard to undo all of that. The flood and this next crisis in derivatives is going to be way too big for the central bank to wallpaper over. They're just not going to be able to do it. 2022 has indeed turned out to be a pivotal year. And the markets are happy because they think that the central banks are going to come back and do this when they're trying to save their dying systems. And they will. They will. I'm 100% convinced that they will. So maybe, I've had people say, well, that doesn't look like too big of a difference, and maybe nothing will happen. Well, I'll tell you what, I had a brother, a genius, absolutely genius, and he had a lab down in his basement where he would perform experiments. Some of those experiments turned out pretty interesting and okay. But some of them did not. And he almost lost his thumb. He had a scar. He's no longer with us, but he had a scar on his thumb from one of his experiments gone awry. Well, unfortunately, I think that a lot of people are going to lose a whole lot more than a thumb.